It's my pleasure to introduce Phillip Barron. Phillip Barron grew up in Florida and South Carolina and studied at the University of Massachusetts Amherst and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where he received a Master of Arts degree in philosophy. He currently teaches courses in philosophy and the humanities at Woodland Community College, while he finishes a Master of Fine Arts degree in creative writing at San Francisco State University. What Comes from a Thing, his first book of poetry, won the 2015 Michael Rubin Book Award and was published by 14 Hills. Let's welcome Phillip Barron.
Thank you, Jen, for a very kind introduction. And thanks, Natasha. I don't know how I can follow such a sensual reading with such an exotic accent.
Try your best.
Thanks, Laura, Seo, and Austin for starting the night off. I was very excited when Natasha asked to read with her at this Velro event, because not only would I get to read with her in her beautiful book, Anatomize, but it's my first chance to read here in the Poetry Center. And growing up in South Carolina on the East Coast, I knew about San Francisco's poetry scene long before having any idea of coming out here. So this is like the apex of the poetry world for me. This is pretty awesome. First poem I'll read tonight is titled Flinters, which you can hear as both the plural of the season or the town that's right next to the town where I live, because it's called Flinters. Aluminum echinacea bloom 4 stories above asphalt. Their hollow stalks hold almonds for winter. Red gantry walks between silage tops, corrugated crowns that sluice away the rain that is not there and the dust that is from top hatch doors, take on the ochre hue of hulls crushed in harvest. Willow and oleander, their growth spurts spent climbing, the galvanized weft that protects what is left of orchards from fescue and stimulants, sag the fence, having grown too much and not enough. Some of these are geographic poems. I always try to find some way to organize things for a reading. So this is another one that's local to here. Driving West's west edge. A lime green roller coaster coasts summer's brown hills just before the bridge sloughs kissers off Mare Island, while a mast makes its way underneath. The freeway ends and the salty smell of bay at low tide begins. It's all egrets and hillfire smoke till we reach the other bridge, the one that climbs and does not climb in dam country. Combustible eucalyptus and apartments border the natives, wet wind whipping through the headlands and nameless gun tunnels facing Imperial Japan. Apex Obscura. We climbed the tapered bracing of weathered steel cords and struts, found footholds in U-turned trusses seasoned with the stress of coal trains, crossing the Piedmont's echo of annual rain. With timid steps beyond the parapets, we flung ourselves from the triangles that bridged the slouching river's banks, for weightless tumult past stringers, and the deck sank before us. Wingless pivot from the apex obscured the self-evident slope of hermetic pleasure. Rising to the surface sears the lungs in the limits of what we may call beautiful, just as labor contains the critique of labor. What we have done is what we will become. Mortality has the seed of its replacement, attention without regret, still. The soul may not be found in autopsy, but it has no place to go down but up. I want to read one that's a little longer poem. I've not read this at a reading before. And it's based on a puzzle that it's helpful to know a little bit about. It's the philosophical puzzle called the Ship of Theseus. And the Ship of Theseus, well, Theseus, if you remember from mythology, against his father's wishes, decided to go off and kill the Minotaur, which was a very dangerous task. And so when he left, he had black sails on his ship. And he was supposed to change the sails if he was successful. He was successful with Ariadne's help and the help of a couple of others. But when he came back, he was celebrating having saved all of the children from the Minotaur and forgot to change the sails, so that when his father saw the ship coming way off in the distance, his father killed himself, threw himself off of the cliff because he thought that his son hadn't been successful. Theseus was the prince, so he becomes the king at that point, and the city decided to honor him for all eternity for saving all of the children, and so they have to sail his ship in perpetuity from the town to the island where the Minotaur was and back every year. You have to keep a ship in good repair in order for it to continue to sail year after year, because anytime wood hits water, it starts rotting right away. So at some point, you know, the carpenters replacing all of the boards on the ship, as they start to rot, will have replaced every single board on the ship. And so the question arises, is it still the Ship of Theseus? How many boards can you replace until it's not the Ship of Theseus anymore? And then Thomas Hobbes made this puzzle even more puzzling by imagining a scavenger who was constantly collecting all of the rotted pieces and rebuilding the ship over in another location. And so eventually you've got two ships, and then which one is the real Ship of Theseus? So this is the problem of identity. It has an epigraph from Linda Gregerson's poem, Ariadne in Triumph, I think. It says, "A cleaner sort of lastingness." There would have come a time when all the wood was new, rotted planks replaced so as not to forget a debt paid in voyages. The ship of semaphores killed both Minotaur and king. Was it still the trireme of Theseus? The curious constructed another from the saved planks of the first. Its blackened boards weaken with each passing day. The conviction that identity's vessel is reflection in a vanity mirror. If both sit moored at port, then which is the Ship of Theseus? What stories build and a city saves might be another sort of self. The distance between the first draft and memory's lapse. Perhaps the city renewed the ship with a different lastingness in mind, to recall not the children saved, but the ones lost to his restlessness, the lover he deceived, the father he killed, the sentinel to the city of Dis, and the beast he became. There came a time when all the ships renewed, fresh paint covered rust, so hulls could move on. A city pays its debt in festival. Ships freighted with a trough economy of the gantry crane, was this still the work of Theseus? Stevedores construct another ballast in imitation of, stevedores construct another ballast, imitation of labor to pass the day's arbitration. Is this a ship to stay executions, or one whose black sails endure? Tended flame embargoes thoughts of blame and a cacophony of mistakes. What stories build and a city saves might be another sort of self, the distance between the first draft and memory's lapse. Perhaps language raises the dead from language. Translators decide which sails to raise, whether to say a text has been slain or to owe a debt to the past. Some translators forget to change the sails. Others decide not to. And the last one I'll read is the first poem in the book, The Scarecrow. Sunlight scatters in place of what was a road, which, like the rose beside it, harrowed from the dirt, held tight the shape of desire to make the land a means. Each row less formed, until the last dark shape lessens into light cast wide by fog. In one of the rows stands a man, stuffed and still. One must be still to see the scarecrow, to wait for heat and wind to part water suspended in cumulus. Though fog breaks, morning's promise of field mice and hare to the northern harrier discloses winter's debt in green shoots brighter than the sun itself, and holds itself to the thought, there is no consequence, there is only permission. The fog is not a reason to think the scarecrow minds the fog. It is only a straw man. Thank you.